In the previous exercises, you've already practiced the way to describe the percentages more effectively. Now, we'll try to take a look at how to analyze the key features in order to have a more effective body paragraph. Let's take a look at exercise number 7 here. The pie charts compare the weights of assessing the news in the UK and Brazil, right? As you can see here, normally the pie chart, when it appears, it will very less likely that it will appear alone. Normally they will try to give you 2 or 3 pie charts in order to compare different categories or different countries or different nations. So for the first one here, it is for the UK, and for the second one here, it is for Brazilians, and it is the ways of accessing news, right? So we have 5 smaller categories here that fit in for the 2 country. So can you take a look and try to pick out the key features of the data here? Can you compare the data and pick out the key features of the data here? I will give you a minute to take a look. Alright, I believe that you already finished, right? Let's take a look at the details that I picked out. So first thing first, I think that we need to mention that more than half of Brazilians access the news online, right? So if you take a look at the second one here, you see very clearly that mostly it's yellow, right? That means a lot of people use online access in order to get the news with 53%. So it's more than 50%. You can use more than half. Alright, so however, in the UK, the top one, the number one is the blue one, right? 41% belong to the TV. So you can say that TV is the most popular way to get the news in the UK, or if you want to put these all together, you can say here in the UK it's 41%, and here in Brazil it is 38%. So you can say that TV is a popular way to get the news in both countries. Next ideas, you can say that print and radio are both much more popular in the UK. So if you take a look, radio with 7% in the UK, but only with 2% in Brazil. And for the print, the black one, in the UK, it's 15%. However, in Brazil, the number is only a third of that number of the same category in the UK, right? With only 6%. Okay, so the next one, you can say that very few people listen to the news on the radio in Brazil. And do you think it's the same for the UK? Yes, even though the number in the UK is a bit more, but compared to other category, it is very, very few. So for exercise number 8 right here, we are going to read the sample answer that describe the 2 pie charts that we've just analyzed above. Can you take a look at this one and try to find the answer of this feature? The overview, the percentages, the use of fractions, language of comparisons, intro and concluding sentence, and then try to take a look at the higher level synonyms for the word of main, generally, key, it is clear, preferring, and each one. I'll give you some minutes to take a look. Are you ready to take a look at the answer? Let's take a look at the answer together. So the first one, the overview. The overview should be the sentence. The two nations shows broadly similar patterns, though there are some differences, both significant and minor. Right? So it will have similar patterns, even though there's still some differences exist. Okay, so the percentages, then you can see the percentages that are used here is 53%, 3%, 15%, and 6%, and that's it, right? The use of fractions in here, we'll see like over a third, right? And then you can say more than half, okay? And then about 2/5. Alright, so the next one for the intro, it's of course the very first sentence in here. The pie charts shows the principal weight of finding out the news in two different countries, the UK and Brazil. That is the intro. And as for the concluding sentence, we can say it is the last sentence here, right? Overall, it can be said that the high levels of internet use in Brazil mean that other methods such as radio and print are used less in comparison with the UK. So this is the overview, this is the concluding sentence, and it's then in the end of the essay. Alright, next one, let's take a look at some higher level synonym for these words and phrases. So for the first one, for main, you can say principle, right? The main way, the principal way. And then for generally, then you can say broadly, right? Broadly, show broadly similar pattern. Broadly is generally. For key, then you can say most prominent, So one of the key features, you can say one of the most prominent features. And of course, the words prominent will bring you a very good score for vocabulary. Alright, next one, it is clear that. You can say it is apparent that. It is clear is used quite often, but if you can use it is apparent that, it will boost your vocabulary score as well. Next one, we can say preferring, you can say favoring. And for each one, you can say respectively, this one. The figures are 15% and 6% respectively in the same order, right? In the same order. Okay, so for the next part here, we are going to take a look at another criteria in order to improve your overall score. Do you remember in the previous lessons we talked about two different criteria that your writing is marked on? Do you remember what are they? Yes, so we've talked about task achievement, right? How well you address the answer. And how about the second one? Yes, we talk about cohesion and coherence, right? Coherence and cohesion. And for this one, in this lesson today, we're going to take a look at grammatical range and accuracy. Grammatical range and accuracy. Remember, it goes together, but sometimes we shorten it as grammar. However, you need to be able to use a range with a certain level of accuracy, right? So let's take a look at exercise number 9 in here. I think that you have a good idea of what should be grammatically correct or incorrect, right? So exercise number 9 here will help you practice find and correct the errors in your writing. But we'll start first with the description of the pie chart in exercise number 6. Remember, you need to become aware of the areas in which you make mistakes and then focusing hard on trying to avoid them, right? So for instance, some people like to use complex structure, but they use it quite carelessly, and they make a lot of mistake with subject verb agreement or maybe the articles. So it is recommended that you should check your piece of writing for grammar mistakes before you submit it. So try your best in order to improve this category. I think that Vietnamese people are very well aware of this. So now let's go back to exercise number 9. I will give you some minutes to take a look and we'll check our answer together. Alright, have you finished? Let's take a look at the first error. My first error is the word shows. As I mentioned before, you need to pay very careful attention for subject-verb agreement. It seems like a very simple and common mistake. But paid very careful attention to this. If I remember it correctly, I mentioned this kind of mistake once in our lesson before in the other units about subject-verb agreement. It is not natural for Vietnamese people to change the word form when we change the subjects or change the tense. That is the reason why we often make this mistake. So be very careful. Here, the pie chart, we only have one, so you need to say the pie chart shows instead of showed. Alright, so for the second mistake, US is the name of the country, and it's actually the initials of the full forms, United States, right? So you should write it in capital letter, US, the US. Alright, the next mistake is the US is one country, right? So they say uses, right? Is that correct? No, actually it's not, because the subject is not the US. You cannot simply try to put the verb in the correct form with the word right after this. The actual verbs of this sentence is adults, and adults is with S. That is the reason why you should be able to use instead of uses. Okay, so the next mistake is are using. You shouldn't use present continuous here. Instead, you should say use. So normally this is when you describe the figure in the data, so it's better to use the simple present. Okay, so also you should say on a regular basis, not in. This is a mistake in prepositions, right? Next mistakes, we can say for this one here, the news was never assessed by them. Actually, you don't really want to use the passive voice here. It's better if you use the active form because you want to focus not on the news but on the people and assessing new, right? So it's better to change it into the active form. The active form. They never assess the news. Okay, so the next one for hikers here, it is the superlative. So you should add the in front of it, and then of on the category, not from, and then find, not finds. Remember the real subjects of the sentence. The second highest category is those who is those. So those here signifying that we have quite a lot of people. So find, no S. Okay, next one we have those surveyed were selected in this response. They are selected not was selected. Select is an action that done by that did by the person. Okay, so it should not be the passive form here. Okay, so the next mistake is fewer than, not less than. Less than is for something that is uncountable, but fewer is for something that is countable. The next mistake, there was a time for the least common response. So here you should use superlative instead of comparative. Next one, equal numbers of, it's actually the mistakes of the comma here. It should change into a full stop and then start a sentence with equal. And now moving on to the last paragraph. Use is used. It's clear that the writer wants to use the passive voice here. The social media is used, okay, is used. And next one, it's evident from the data, not by the data. You should say from the data. And next one, from the data, the majority of citizens. You can keep that. You just need to add the here. By the data that the majority of citizens. Alright? Citizens, we need to add s and then change the verbs as well. And the very last mistake is not read the new on these signs, not in these signs. Can you identify all of these mistakes? If good, then very well. If yes, then very well done.